Hey everybody, Pat Armstrong here with another edition of Increase, the lifestyle vlog for men and the women who love them. And today, ladies, we're going to be talking to you. And I know it's been a while since I put out a video, and there's been a few reasons for that. One thing, we're right in the middle of the summer. Actually, summer's over, school has already started, so we're beginning the fall season, so a lot of activities during the summer. I wanted to be prepared for the content of this video. And first of all, let me say a big thank you to all of you that participated in my survey that I sent out a few weeks ago. And so today, that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about 6 things, ladies, that I believe should be a priority in your life. And let me preface it by saying this as well. If you are in school, whether it be high school or college, this video really is not for you. My recommendation would be that you watch a previous video that I made that was actually aimed more toward the priorities of children. And I don't want you to take that, be offended by that. Because if you're still in college, even though technically you're considered an adult, you are still more than likely living at home and still under your parents' rule. And so I want to recommend that you watch that one. This video is going to be more for those ladies who have finished school, have already gone out into a career or started a family or what have you. And I also realize that, ladies, you're going to be in different places in your journey of life. And so that's why I say these 6 things I think should be a priority in your life. But at the same time, some of these things might not apply to some of you because either you're already past that place in your journey or you haven't gotten there yet. But let me say this. The first 2 that I give you here today, I think are definitely the most important and in the right order. 3 through 6 after that, again, they're going to be where you are in your journey. And so let's get right into it here by giving you, again, 6 things I believe, ladies, that should be a priority in your life. Priority number 1, it all starts with God. And I think if you've been watching my videos, you know by now that everything I talk about is going to be centered around our relationship with Jesus Christ. And now you may watch these videos and you may not actually be a believer. And again, I want to, and I can't impress upon you the importance of a relationship with Jesus Christ. You know, you can go through life and everybody at one time or another is going to let you down. And it doesn't matter if it's your parents, if it's your spouse, if it's your children, if it's your coworker, if it's your friend, even if it's yourself. At one time or another, these people are going to let you down. It may not be intentional, but it's going to happen. But the one person that will never ever let you down is God. I know a lot of you ladies right now that you've gone through a lot. And you do not know where you would be right now if it was not for your relationship with Jesus Christ. Ladies, that's where it needs to start. It needs to start with a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. And if you have not already done so, let me again recommend to you that you go back and watch my video that I did before called All Roads Lead to Rome. And get number 1 taken care of. Priority number 2, ladies, it's yourself. Now I know when I sent out the survey and I got the responses back, the number 1 priority that I got most of the time from most of those that responded was God. Number 2 was not yourself. In fact, I believe out of all the surveys I got back, there may have been 2 that listed number 2 priority as yourself. Most of the ones I got back listed yourself as priority number 5 or number 6. Now, ladies, I want you to listen to me, please, very closely. The number 1 priority in your life, again, as I said before, should be God. But number 2, which is also very, very important, has to be yourself. Now I know, again, especially for many of you that grew up in a Christian home, a Christian background, that totally goes against conventional wisdom. But here's the thing. It's hard for you to do your best if you're not your best. And so when we think about increasing and the priorities that in our life that we want to increase mentally, we want to increase physically, we want to increase spiritually, and we want to increase socially. All of those things that we work on will have something to do with the rest of the priorities in our life. So if we're not trying to do our best personally, mentally, physically, spiritually, and socially, how in the world can we help those other priorities in our life? You know, a lot of times we put so much into it. And ladies, I have talked to many of you, chatted with you either online or talked to you face to face, and talked about where you are in your journey right now. And it's so unfortunate, and it grieves my heart to know what many of you have gone through or are going through. And many of you have put your heart and soul into your relationship with your spouse or with your family, only to be tossed aside. And then you find yourself, what am I gonna do? Where am I at? What am I gonna do? To where if we would have set a priority of taking care of ourselves, then yes, though it would still be very hurtful, it would not be quite so devastating. And listen to me when I say that. I'm not talking about selfishness. I'm not talking about that at all. But it reminds me of if you've ever flown and you have the pre-flight announcement by the flight attendant that they tell you all about the emergency doors and that your seat is a floating device, but the main thing I always think about is the air mask that fall down from the ceiling, that if the cabin lose pressure, then you can put the mask on. But they always remind everybody though, if you have someone who needs assistance, you need to put the mask on yourself first. Then you help the child or the senior adult or whatever. Because look, you can't help anybody if you're passed out on the floor. Okay? And so that's the way it is with life. We need to make sure that in our own lives, again, I'm not talking about selfishness. I'm not talking about totally abandoning everything else to take care of me. But what I'm talking about is we've got to learn to take care of ourselves physically, mentally, spiritually, and socially, so that we can help our spouse, so that we can help our children, so that we can be a helper at church and a help at work, and make those priorities right. So, and I know I belabored this point, but really I hope you understand that it's very, very important that you make yourself a priority. Priority number 3. Your husband. Ladies, this is where a lot of you have been taught all your lives that after God, if you are married, then it should be your husband. But I can tell you this, there's no better thing that you can do for your husband than to take care of yourself. And I remember recently talking to my wife. As many of you know, my wife is a certified Zumba instructor. And in one of her classes recently, she had a young lady that had come to her class and had just recently joined the gym, one of the gyms where Bonnie teaches. And when she started this gym membership, her husband questioned her as to, why do you want to do this? Well, she had been married for a little while and she had gained a little weight and different things, and she wanted to take care of herself and be more healthy. And that's why she joined the gym. Well, he kept questioning her about why, until he started seeing the results. And she started losing some weight and started getting in better shape. And he liked what he saw. And so He didn't question her anymore. In fact, he started to encourage her and being more of an encouragement to her to take care of herself. And ladies, I mean that. One of the best things that you can do for your husband is to take care of yourself. And then you worry about taking care of him. Number 4, the kids. Somebody's got to take care of the kids. You know, there's an old saying that says, the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. You know, and it's so unfortunate that in our society today that we have taken the emphasis off of parenting children. We think that our society needs to take care of our kids. But you know, that's not the way it's intended to be. We as parents are the one who are supposed to take care of our children. And mom, especially you. And I know there are some ladies that are watching this that from the time you were a little girl, all you wanted to do was be a wife and be a mom. And I'll tell you, that is probably one of the greatest responsibilities ever, of being a wife and being a mom. And moms, you don't understand. You have such an influence on your children. And your responsibility is so important. That's why your children, if you're in that stage in your life, need to be a priority. But let me say this too, because again, I know in the survey that I sent, many, and this is not unusual, I talked to a lot of ladies that they put their children even ahead of their husband. And let me say a couple things about that. First of all, you notice I did not say a boyfriend, a significant other. I'm talking about your husband. Because until that man in your life is ready to make that commitment, you truthfully don't have to be committed to him. Now listen, don't misunderstand me when I say that. I'm not talking about, for lack of a better term, being unfaithful to this person or whatever. Because yes, you do have, even if you're dating, you do have a commitment to each other. But until he's willing to make that commitment by putting that ring on your finger, you're not tied down to anyone. There could be another man to come into your life and sweep you off your feet. And you know what? That's okay. Now, once you made that commitment and that ring's on your finger, that's not okay. But, so we clear that up. I'm talking about your husband. I'm not talking about, again, a boyfriend, a significant other, or whatever. But number 2, one of the best things that you can do for your children is to love their father. You want to know a great picture that our children need to see of love is their parents loving each other. And mom, that's a priority that you need to make for your children, is to show your children that you love their father. Number 5 is church. Now, if you've watched any of my other videos that have to do with growing spiritually, you know that I believe that church attendance is very important, just because we need that connection with other believers. But here's the thing about that. A lot of people want to put church even ahead of their home relationships. Or they say, well, you already mentioned God. But let me tell you this, your relationship with God and your relationship with God at church are 2 different things. Your relationship with God, with Jesus Christ, is a personal thing between you and him, to where the church, again, was organized for the sake of us meeting together and encouraging and uplifting one another. And yes, singing praises and spending time in worship and listening to God's word. But the main thing was that it's about that fellowship of the believers. And so that's a very big, important priority that should be in all of our lives. Because even when we go through these hard times, whether it be socially, financially, whatever the case may be, that church should be one of those areas that we can go to always and to be uplifted. And finally, ladies, priority number 6 is your career. Now, again, I started this video out by talking about some of you are in different places in your journey. Some of you are right out of school and you're starting a career, so you're not married, you might have a boyfriend, you might not, and so your career is going to be a little higher on that priority list. Some of you might be a recently married couple, married within the last 5 years or so, but there's no children involved yet. So again, the children to be lower on that priority list. And then there's some of you that are middle-aged, where you're trying to juggle and balance all of those things, and the relationship with your husband and your children, and maybe you have a career and all of that. But here's the thing you have to remember. Your family is, after your relationship with God, your family is the most important thing. And the other things, yeah, they're important. That's why I said they need to be a priority. But your priority needs to be on your family first. Then you can worry about the other things. You say, well, wait a minute. I've got to support my family. And yes, that's true. And again, depending on where you are in your journey, some of you have to do that. But again, I'm more traditional, more old-fashioned, and I think if you're in a relationship where you're married, the bulk of that responsibility falls on your husband. And your responsibility is to take care of the home. And I know that sounds, especially in our world today, that's very old-fashioned. But I think that works out a lot better. Now, if you get to the point in your relationship and in your journey to where you can work outside of the home, that's fantastic. But I'll tell you, ladies, you taking care of the home is the most important thing that you could ever do. And again, I'm not saying those other things are not important, but taking care of your home is so important. And so if you have a career, that's great. And if that works for you, that's fantastic. But I ask that you please do not neglect the home life to go work some job or try to go up the corporate ladder or whatever, because you're going to suffer for that. Your husband's going to suffer for that. Your children are going to suffer for that. And so that might mean you make some sacrifices, but those sacrifices will be worth it. And then once your children are grown up and they're gone, then then you can look at that career again and go from there. But I think if you have a family, your career would be the low thing on your list. If you don't have a family, then yes, it's going to be a little bit higher. But and don't forget this. The number one priority, ladies, is your relationship with God. And number 2 priority is yourself.